Welcome to another segment of Out and Informed on therapycable.com. This is Jim Brillon, and this is the program about issues concerning the LGBT community. I'm with Joe Court once again today. Joe, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And today we're going to talk about another one of his books, and that's this one. It's the 10 Smart Things That Gay Men Can Do to Improve Their Lives. Joe, I think that this book, for me, was helpful in understanding some of the ways that I can continue my process of working on myself as a gay man. It also really helped me in terms of being a therapist, in understanding what are some of the core issues, kind of distilling them down. And I wonder if maybe we could even just kind of start and go through, because the way you wrote the book, it's very simple and straightforward and accessible. And I wonder if we could just kind of start with the first one and kind of talk about, you know, some of these key things that gay men can do to improve their lives and how we as clinicians can help them to do that.
Sure, definitely.
So the first one, number one, is taking responsibility for your own life. And talk about how you see that as being the first step for gay men.
That came out of so much of the work, and plus not just work, but my friends who, and maybe even me early on, you know, thinking that people did this to me, that I was owed something, that my life was robbed, and I was waiting for society to, approve gay marriage and let us into the military. And eventually you start saying, wait a minute, I'm not going to wait for someone else's blessing. This is my life. This is my journey. And I deserve my 20s and 30s and 40s and later of my 50s of my own life. And so I tried to help my clients understand this is not going to be helpful to you waiting for the blessing of your mother, your father, your grandparent. Bless yourself.
Right.
Move forward. Take responsibility yourself. And, you know, that's really a societal thing anyway. So many of us hold other people accountable for our problems, and that doesn't work. So that was why I started with that chapter.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful statement to say, bless yourself, and to sort of recognize that we don't have to wait until everything works out, until society comes around. You know, that it's really up to us, and I think that's true of everybody. And it's really possible for us to be happy for no reason. You know, to just. We can look at the developmental wounding and recognize that, yes, this happened, and I'm responsible for, understanding that, maybe my promiscuity or my sexual acting out is an issue that I need to deal with,
Yes, right. It's really about not taking a victim position.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what a lot of people do. And I was seeing that in my practice, and especially in Michigan, it's so conservative here. And even still, it's just so, it's hard to be gay here in the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
So other than if you live in Chicago, if you're lucky, or even Wisconsin's a little better. But, but to wait for Michigan, I'm not waiting for Michigan. It's my life. So I was trying to help people do the same.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, I think that part about empowering yourself, I think, is so important, no matter who you are.
Yes.
So number two, you talk about affirming yourself by coming out, and I think there's a lot of studies that show that there's a correlation between your level of outness and your mental health. That staying in the closet for a long period of time can help deteriorate your mental health, and so let's talk about the importance of coming out and affirming yourself.
Yeah, there's even a study that came out last year by Columbia University that showed that gay and lesbians live 15 years less than the majority because of the minority stress of being closeted. And so it's beyond just like a deterioration of our self-esteem. It's a deterioration of our health, our mental health, our medical health. And I just felt really strongly that it was important to come out. And even as a therapist in the 90s, it was not heard of to come out. It was starting to be. And in Michigan, it wasn't. Though we're always like 10 years behind everyone. And people were saying, you know, you're supposed to keep your orientation in the closet. And I felt like, maybe, but I'm not going to. I'm gay. I always associated with being Jewish. I wasn't going to be a closeted Jew. I'm not going to be a closet gay. And I didn't know, though, how hungry gay people were to have a gay therapist, because it helped them come out. I role modeled something that they were hungry for.
Right.
And in that book, I tried to put the stages. I loved Cass's stage of coming out.
Right.
And so I put that in there so that they would know this is what I'm going through, because it was mysterious.
Yeah, and I think the process, it really is a process. It's an ongoing thing. You know, you can come out in pieces. You know, you come out to yourself first, you know, to friends, family, and it's an ongoing thing. I mean, this whole project for me is part of my coming out. You know, before I started doing this program, I never even thought about, you know, doing videos that everybody is going to see and being openly gay. So it's a process that continues, and I think that's an important point you made about being role models, that as we come out as individuals, we help other people to do the same thing.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, I never actually personally needed to have a gay therapist. I've never had a gay therapist, and I've been in therapy most of my life, on and off, mostly on. But I didn't realize there was such a hunger for gay and lesbian clients to have a gay therapist.
Yeah.
So I met that need.
I think you did write at one point about some of the initial therapists that you saw and how they really didn't get, you know, the gay thing. Yeah.
Right, and I think that's why I know that's why the gay and lesbian clients came to me, because they figured I did get it, because I am gay. Because you're right, I had some really bad experiences early on of misguided therapists.
Yeah. So number 3, you talk about the importance of resolving issues with your family, and I think that's a big one. And I think that because the family is so important to us, because these are the people that we come into the world as part of this microcosm, and you know what our family thinks about us is important, and these are the people that we're going to know hopefully all throughout our lives. So let's talk about the importance of resolving family issues and how you can do it, and can it always be done?
Yeah, good. These are great questions. Important in that you start talking about the issues, particularly in our case, obviously, about being gay, about being lesbian. Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of my clients would wait to be asked, or they would come out and say, okay, I came out 3 months ago, they haven't said a thing. Mm-hmm. And here's where I would say, take responsibility for it yourself, mm-hmm. and you lead the way, you bring it up, and you don't know that they're not comfortable, they may not want to hurt your feelings, they may worry that they're saying the wrong thing. Right. It's your job, and I felt it was my job. My sister would bring up over her boyfriend, I would bring over her boyfriend. She would talk about her boyfriend, I would talk about my boyfriend. Equality. And my family didn't like it. They were very concerned and upset, and I didn't do it always in the best of way. I was in your face at some point. Mm-hmm. And that's a stage of coming out, right. You know, of just being, right?
The pride stage, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But, and I feel it's important that we also hear our parents and our family's version of what, and I remember one time there was a gay father here locally, and he'd say, I have a gay son in one hand, and I have my Bible in the other, and I'm not getting rid of my gay son, and I'm not getting rid of my Bible. Right. And that was the tension for him. He had to reconcile that. And I always say to gays and lesbians, if we want to be accepted, then we have to accept them as well. Right. And if they can only come so far, then we should accept where they can come as far, and just like we want them to accept us. To demand that they come all the way isn't fair.
Yeah, and I think recognizing too that when you come out as an individual, your family is also coming out, because they're at the place where they're having to, you know, start admitting that, you know, I have a gay son, or I have a gay daughter, yes. You know, or a transgendered cousin, you know. So it really is sort of we don't do it in isolation. So it affects them. I like what you,
Yeah, the family member comes out of the closet, the family goes right into the closet. That's how
Mm-hmm.
that works.
Mm-hmm.
And they have their closet to come out.
So number 4 is graduate from eternal adolescence. And I think that this is great because I think it makes so much sense to me that because when straight kids are going through their adolescence, they're developing their identity. So often gay kids are developing a false identity. They're concealing themselves. And really coming out really is an adolescence for gay people. It's when they start, developing and learning how to have relationships. And I think we can get stuck in that stage, where we become Peter Pan, and we never really want to grow up and we never learn how to have mature relationships because maybe we never learned it in the first place. And so let's talk about that.
So I would say it differently than I said it in that book. I would say what I said in the book that I wrote 10 years ago, but now I say we don't have women in our culture, and women really demand and force the hand of men to grow up.
Wow.
So that's one of the downfalls of being gay, is not having a woman to demand that and show us the importance of relationships, to use relationship skills. And so it's just really important that we do it for ourselves. And we're men. It's not a gay thing, it's a guy thing.
Right. So women, if you have a woman in your life, often they can counter some of the male socialization because just as men, whether you're gay, straight, or wherever you land, you're socialized to only exhibit certain emotions, never show that you're weak. And you never take that depressive position, and we are taught to kind of divorce ourselves from our own emotional life. So reintegrating that, I think that's a really important piece about the importance of having women in our lives.
And I always say this too when I talk about couples, that in relationship, like women will always say, I wish my husband was like a man because they're so available, they're so emotional. And I would say we are, but we're not necessarily with each other. Because we were socialized to be men, so we don't know how to bring those emotions, that maturity to a relationship and demand it from each other.
Right.
And so it's a missing element, and it sort of looks adolescent. And we've been criticized, right, by people who are anti-gay that we are adolescents. But it's only because we haven't evolved as a culture. It's not because we're gay.
Right. And how can a clinician help someone to recognize that and develop into a more mature identity?
Really identifying the immaturity, identifying the internal, the examples of adolescence, sort of helping gay men, especially, remember that their needs matter, but so does the matter. So it also matters the needs of someone else. So like in my gay men's group, I'm always saying to them, you're not just here for you, you're here for each other. And to remember that if you don't come, or you just decide not to come back, you've impacted someone else here. To remember that there's the other in the room. Right. And, to really make choices that are responsible for oneself, that affect other people. And I think as therapists, we become, that's what we have to do, is teach the gay man how to remember those things, because it's easy to just have a superficial relationship and a superficial identity without having somebody coach you deeper. Right.
Very good. Number 5 is avoiding or overcoming sexual addiction, and I think that's a big topic. No matter how you understand the topic of sexual addiction or compulsivity, and sometimes sexual acting out can be not necessarily an addiction to the sex itself, but the acting out relieves other difficult emotions. It distracts us from stuff that's going on. But it can be a really big problem in the gay community, especially when drugs are involved, because we can fall into patterns of drug-driven sex that really destroys people's lives.
Yeah. Today I would write that chapter differently and I would name it differently. I still will use the word sexual addiction, but I don't know that it's the right word anymore, the
Right.
right label. Out of control sexual behavior feels better, problematic sexual behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is that, like sexual abuse survivors,
Mm-hmm.
we have, sort of developed a hypersexuality. There's been a damage sometimes to our erotic templates, the core sexual scripts that we think about,
Right.
and a lot of shame. And so there are, again, our culture doesn't have women in it. And so no one's saying, hey, wait a minute, before we have sex, I want you to get to know me. I want to go to dinner. We just, like it's the Billy Crystal joke. Women need a reason to have sex. Men just need a place, right? So we're men, and we just need a place, and we find the place. And there's nothing wrong with this. I feel like in some ways we're free, we're liberated sexually, way more than lesbians, way more than heterosexuals. But we're so liberated that there's nobody putting the brakes on, saying, "What does responsible sex look like?" This week I've just had a couple clients. One received a sexually transmitted disease. I had another client who's starting to recognize he's on Grindr too much, and 6 guys a week. What's he doing? Is that responsible? Isn't it responsible? We really need to take time to reflect on: is this really what I want to be doing, or what's right for me, rather than I don't feel good about myself. Let me go find ways to feel good, and it's through the doorway to sex.
Yeah, very, very important point. Number 6, you talk about the importance of learning from successful mentors and others who've been there and done that. And I think it's difficult often to find those people because they're not obvious in the community. But I think it's really important to find somebody that you can have that kind of relationship with.
I'm always, and I'm still disturbed that as a gay male community, we don't have people that we revere, that we hold up. In the lesbian community, they do, right? Melissa Etheridge, celebrities, right? Ellen, they have someone, they look at her and they say, this is a model of lesbian, we want to be more like you. We don't have that today in 2014 still. And I don't get it, I don't understand it. So I wrote this chapter because I did have someone, and I still do. Brian McNaught is a sex educator. He does gays in the workplace. I fell in love with him watching his PBS special in the 90s. I thought he made sense. He was a mentor to me. I contacted him. He was friendly to me. He taught me, how to he was instrumental in helping me become a writer. He guided me in certain areas. And I feel like, straight people get that from their families, from their grandparents, from their uncles, their aunts. We don't get that. We don't have that. So it's important to look for that, find that.
Yeah, and I think in so many ways that the gay culture would be very different if young LGBT kids could go to somebody who's older and that person could say, this is very cool about learning who you are, but be careful about this and look out for these kinds of people that may not have your best interests at heart. And if you ever want to talk about it, that kind of just very basic learning from another person, is so important, and it's a huge piece that's missing in the culture.
Truly is.
So number 7, you talk about taking advantage of therapy workouts. And
right, because
go ahead and talk.
The whole idea, that gay guys are so into workouts, so into body, so into physical, and that's great. I love that too. But there's also the importance of going inside mentally. So I had no idea that my book would be so successful. I knew in Michigan it would be because I'm a Detroit person. I'm very popular here. My practice was very popular. I'd done a lot of work. So I wrote the book hoping it would be, and then it was. It was in bookstores in San Francisco and Chicago and LA, and I'd get, my clients would go or friends would go and say, your book is in the window. And so when I did the book, I did book signings. I asked why. Why was my book so popular to you? Because I'm a Midwest guy, and this is Candyland. I come to San Francisco, and it's gay heaven. And they said, because you reminded us of unfinished business around internalized homophobia. So we left places to come here, but we didn't do the mental workouts. We didn't do the inside work.
Yeah.
And that made me feel great to hear that.
Yeah, that's great and really true, too. Number 8, you talk about maintaining rewarding relationships. And I think it's really it's kind of a sad truth that sometimes relationships tend to be very fleeting. We may not even get to know somebody on a deeper level, and we don't really connect on that deep human level. So talk about that.
Well, this to me is another male thing, not a gay thing.
Mm-hmm.
The gay male thing is that we've been damaged and wounded and told we're bad and told we're wrong. And when you get into a relationship, all those negative messages come out. And so now you've got two people that feel damaged. And so what starts happening is you start feeling like this isn't the right person. I can't get past this. You should make me feel good, not make me feel bad. And there's no mature female energy, whatever you want to call it, women who understand you got to be able to suffer the bad and the good. So you're right. A lot of gay male couples or a lot of gay men end, or they distance themselves, or they open their relationships, which is fine to do, but not without doing it responsibly and relationally. And a lot of us don't have those relational skills. And it's important because that's how you heal, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's very true. And if you do stay in a relationship long enough to get to that power struggle stage, where your childhood stuff starts coming up, then that's when it's really important to stay connected and maybe even get some help recognizing what's going on, because I think a lot of people, I really like the Imago way of conceptualizing relationship struggles, and I think that's a big piece of it too, is recognizing what the heck is going on here, and staying with it till you can figure it out, because we're wounded in relationship, we heal in relationship.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Number 9, you talk about understanding the stages of love. I think that's a little bit about what we're starting to talk about, but how do you conceptualize that?
Yeah, I wanted gay men to understand what I learned, which is there are stages to relationships: the romantic stage, the power struggle, and real love, the final stage where you get to know each other, warts and all, and you stay committed and you choose commitment. The first stage is easy. Anybody can do it. Teenagers do it. Romance, is valued in our culture, valued in the world. That should be the only stage, and that people didn't understand, but particularly gay men didn't understand what you just said. That problems are part of relationship, and it's working through the problems. And what I liked about Imago, which I talked about it in there, Imago relationship therapy, is that the problems are indicators that you're with the right person. Unless there's domestic violence, unless there's untreated addiction, you're with the right person. They're here. You've hired them to be your greatest teacher, and then you go kicking and screaming into the classroom. And you want to go into that classroom. You hired them. So I was all about wanting gay men to find a way to stay in their relationships and not use the tension to say, I'm out of here, because it's easier to do that.
Right. And the last in your list of the 10 things is committing to a partner. And I think that's a huge deal for gay men in particular. It's really frightening, I think, for a lot of people. We don't have experience in relationships, and we don't see them like you've been talking about, modeled. We don't have role models. So how do we do that? How do we even get to the point where we can say, yeah, I think I can do this?
Yeah, I know. It's changing, right? With marriage, you're seeing these long-term couples come out. I still get tearful when I see a couple 40 years into their relationship getting married, Like, wow, and like just to know that that's possible, but to also recognize, I don't think I said this in this chapter, but I would say it now, so many years later, your relationship can look any way you want it to look. That's the blessing of being gay. You don't have to follow any model. You can stay committed to one person, and it can look any way you want it to. But if you want longevity, you want family, you want long-term relationship, we have a right. I was raised in the 60s, and my role model was the homosexual guy in the movie Midnight Cowboy, who rents John Voight, and that picture of his mother on the nightstand, and I was like, that's not going to be some crap that's going to kill me. That's my like polyester pants up to your nipples, and that was why I wrote that chapter, because I'm like, damn it, we are entitled to have a long-term relationship if that's what we want. I'm not going to be that guy, and I'm not.
That's great. What else would you say about how we as clinicians can help gay men to work on this list, and to help them understand that it is possible to have a life that works better for me and includes other people in a healthy way too?
Community, getting involved in the community, making some friends, getting support, not being isolated, going to gay therapists. Straight therapists are great if they're trained in gay affirmative therapy, but really finding your own place, not waiting for the place to come to you. Even as a gay man now, I'm in my 50s, right? And as I'm midlife, like, I don't see that. I don't see that where that's positive. I'm looking for that. You know what? I'm going to be making it while I'm looking for it.
Right.
That's what I'm going to create it. That's the kind of thing.
Right. Joe, thank you so much for taking the time to do these talks with us. I think it's been just really super great, and really hope that people will look further into some of these issues, because in these talks we just kind of touch the surface really, but I think it's important to really explore what it means to be a gay affirmative therapist, how gay men can improve their own lives, how as clinicians we can help them to do that. And the whole topic of your upcoming book, of mixed orientation relationships and the fluid nature of sexuality. It's just a fascinating topic. I really enjoy your writing, and thank you so much for joining us for these episodes.
Thank you so much yourself.
Sure.
Yes.
And we'll put a banner up where you can reach Joe. It's joecourt.com, and read more about his books, his things online, and keep learning. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.